And I know we talked about how you can prioritize your requirements using your Moscow or high level, high, medium, low, or 1, 2, 3. And yeah, so today, so this is just going to be, just to introduce you to some of the few things. So like I said, we can't cover everything in 2 days. So just few things that you need to know at the same time. And so as a BA, you need to know what we call the business process, or what we call process modeling. So when you say what is a business process, so we can say is a way where maybe which organization carry out their operation. So for example, so we can say is a series of maybe actions or steps or procedure, that leads to a particular result in any business organization. So for example, if we are saying, so in any organization, definitely when they are producing something or they are carrying out a particular task, so they will always have a process. Let's assume that probably, let's use, let's say as that today. And when when we say we want to map a process, they may have say, okay, we are trying to understand, it may not even be a problem, maybe they're having any problem. So they may just say, we need a BA to come and document or map all our business processes. So we use map. So that map is like, put everything together, like putting, that diagram together, like that step by step. So we use map a process. We can say, oh, map the process or map the business processes, or, so we just use that map is like, putting that diagram, that sequence together. And so they may say, okay, we want to document all the business processes that we have in this organization. So definitely, if they say in the whole organization, so it's going to be huge. It could take even months or maybe a few years. It depends how big the organization is. And also, so it's not necessarily that is when they have a problem that you map the business process. It's just that probably maybe they don't have a documentation, for it. And any organization, in every organization, you should have sort of like a process, even if it's not, if you don't even map it as a business person, put it in a diagram, at least there should be step by step, like, so that's where some people, you see them, they have, user guide. So when they have a user guide, that user guide will still tell you step by step on how they need to do things. And so we can say, for example, so Hasdan, and let's say Hasdan wants to map all their business processes. So that means they will start from maybe, so you may even say, they may say, okay, start from finance. So that means, in ASDA, they will have different departments. They will have the warehouse team, they will have the customer service team, they will have probably the logistic, they will have the finance, they will have, HR as well, because they are big organizations, it's not just only shops they have, they will have different departments. So they may say, okay, we need to start from finance. Maybe those are the key. We need to, have those processes documented. So that means, so that means they may ask you to, you start with the, liaison with the, with the finance stakeholders to say, you want to map their processes. So they have to tell you all the processes that they have. So in finance alone, you could have like 20 business processes that you need to map. So, and when you are mapping your processes, definitely they may say there's a process for them to process invoice, or maybe to raise a payment, or to raise a purchase order, or maybe to do let's say salary payments, or maybe to do daily cash flow or daily sales. So they will have so for example, let's say maybe they have a process of let's say calculating, or maybe sales of the day. Let's just from that they want to know, they have a process of of knowing the let's say daily sales. So let's say daily sales, or maybe calculate daily sales. So that means then you need to start asking them, how do you carry out this process? Because you will be new to it. You don't know how they do their daily, cash flow, to know how much they actually, or maybe they've, the sales that they've made, in each day. So definitely they will have to talk you through that process to say, okay, what we do every hour, we contact, maybe they may tell you that they do print out, they do log into a system, or maybe they have a third-party system that usually process the payments for them. Like when you buy something online. So it could be that it goes through a third-party platform, payments platform, before it's now, then maybe it's the third party that they will process your, maybe the card or your credit card. So probably maybe that payment is going through a particular platform, payments platform, then maybe they, now, credit as that bank account. Maybe that's what they do, maybe every hour. So, but because you are not going to know that, but the people in finance, they will know how that process works, how they actually calculate that daily sales, figure. So then they will have to tell you that process to say, when a customer orders, it goes through our third-party platform. Our third-party platform sends us notification every hour, or maybe it's every 4 hours. Then we print out, we log into their, maybe the third-party platform. Then we print out the sales figure for every hour. Then maybe at the end of maybe 7 or maybe 10 o'clock, we do the final, we collate everything together. Then we send it, then maybe we calculate everything together. Then we do our calculation, maybe the sales for daily, maybe our sales of maybe sales figure every 10 o'clock, 10 p.m. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that step by step, definitely they will be able to, talk you through, then you just need to document that. So the business process, so different organization they have, so it could be even, they may say you need to, maybe it's just for you to map a process to how they recruit staff, maybe, or recruitment of, new staff. So, but how do you go through the process? You need to talk to maybe the HR department to say, okay, maybe it's the administrator, one way or the other. The stakeholder will tell you who you need to speak with, that will give you all those information. Then you can ask, you need to start asking them that, how do you go about it? Could you tell me how you do this recruitment of new staff? Then they will start telling you, okay, when we receive notification by email, or maybe they may just even tell you that we receive information for requesting a new staff. Then you need to ask, how do you get that notification? So that's where, that skills comes in. So you need to be able to, because you want to know every detail involved in that process. So then you can say, okay, so how do you get a notification? Because somebody is telling you that I do receive a notification. But you need to be able to ask the person may not really tell you, we get a notification from line manager, or we get a notification from head of department, or from IT team. They may not really tell you that. But you need to be able to tease out that information from this, that, okay, you receive a notification. So where do you get that notification from? Oh, from line manager. So they tell you, okay, then is it in an email or phone call, or how, or do they need to, did they send you a form or something? Or did they log into any system? How do you get that notification? So, you've asked about, they just saying they receive a notification, but you now ask them about how did they get that notification? So is it email, form, or wherever? Then you've asked them who actually provided that information for the request to them. So it's just about, trying to understand, how everything joins up. So now they've actually mentioned, so they may say, okay, we received that notification. So what happens next? Okay, when we receive the notification of a request for new staff, okay, we send that to our agency, or they may say they populate that on their maybe on social media or maybe on job sites. Okay, so then what happened? So they may say, okay, we usually leave it there for 7 days. Okay, so then when we receive that after 7 days, we shortlist the staff, we download all the things, all the forms, applications, we send it to the line manager. Okay, you can even ask them, how do you send it to line manager? Do you upload it in a folder, or do they access, maybe sort of like a system where they have to, then you ask them, that process till they onboard the person. So they have to tell you about maybe maybe how the shortlisting are being done, who is actually doing the shortlisting, after shortlisting, what happened, they invite, so they contact the shortlisted staff, they ask them maybe to choose their interview time slots. When they choose the time, what happened, they attend the interview. So when they attend the interview, then what happens, you notify them maybe by email or by phone call, then once they accept, you send them offer letter. So they have either accept or decline. Okay, you ask them, they do ask them when they will, resume. They agree a day, they start there. Okay, you send the information to IT team. That's all those information you have to actually be able to document it. It's a sequence of activity that is actually happening. So that's what we call a process. So that means IT will have their own process of how they create a new, maybe, produce IT kits for a new staff. Likewise, HR will have how they generate, employee number for a new staff, how they recruit a new staff, So that means, in every department or team, they will have a way of doing their things. So that's what the business process is just all about. So it's more or less like a flow of tasks. So that is being performed, maybe to deliver a service or a product, or for you to produce a product. So that is what that a business process. So I've given examples, a few examples on that. So then why do we model a process? So when we say model, it's just, is another terminology that we use as well. So it is for us to be able to understand, how that process is being carried out, because you can just say, okay, you have a recruitment process, but I don't know. So I would not know. If you don't give me that information, I will not really know, or how that process is being together. And I would, and it's also good to model that business process so that you can visualize it. People can read through. They don't have to, read the text like the user guide. User guide will be in text, in like step 1, do this, step 2, log into this, step 3, create a user. So, but when you see that visual, like a diagram, is easier to actually understand, and it will save time at the same time, instead of reading through maybe documents like that. And also, so it provides you a visual representation of, the set of or maybe activities or tasks that are being done. And also when you map a process, it will actually help you to understand. You could easily identify where the problem is. Because like we said yesterday, because it could be that business process is maybe they're having problem, with the delivery process, but they don't really know where the problem is. But while you are mapping that process, you could easily identify some of the bottlenecks, within the process. It could be that it takes a long time, for the warehousing to put the goods together. It could be maybe for them reaching out, it could be even from finance to say, okay, this payment has gone through, pack the order for this customer ABC. So it could be, so you could easily identify where where that problem is within the business process. So sometimes, so that's why, so it has its own advantage, of putting, the business process together. And sometimes when you also, map that process, it will help you to identify what is needed. So you could easily say something is missing here. So, and what needs to be done or to improve the current process. When you map it, you could easily identify that. And also, we use that as well. So it's just also, as I was saying, so when you map the process, it just helps, you could easily identify that some of the steps, maybe the manual or way of doing it, that you could automate, some of the tasks or some of those steps, maybe to just improve the process. And it could be that probably maybe you could just say, okay, this process, we could change the sequence of how things being done. Maybe instead of getting the notification of the payment has gone through, or we can maybe we can notify the logistic team at the same time. So there are a lot of reasons why you need to map that process, and it could be just to simplify the process or redesign the process. So you just so that's just in a nutshell. So that's just a brief overview of that. And so for the business process modeling, you have different diagrams that we do put together. So the context diagram, we usually call it level 0, and sometimes they call it data flow diagram as well. So this is where you show the interaction of that system that you're trying to put together, how it interacts with maybe other external system or other system. So, but like I said, if you listen to the past videos that is on Blue Sky YouTube channel, you'll be able to see an example of what context diagram is. So likewise, I know a lot of people will be familiar with the flowchart diagram as well. So that just shows you the sequence of how things are being done. That process will easily, represent that in the diagram. And so the cross-functional one is actually, I'm going to show you that one. So that's where you have swim lane. In the flow chart, you don't have swim lane. So you only have swim lane when you hear swim lane. So it actually relates to cross-functional flow diagram. So that's where you see how the, like the logistic team, how they interact with the finance team, how they interact with the, with the warehouse team. You'll be able to see who is doing what, So it's just to actually, map that the process that we talked about a few minutes ago. And so you have the BPMN that was mentioned yesterday. That's the business process modeling notations, symbols. So I will show you that as well once I just finish, talking through all these things. So I will show you the visual diagram. So yeah, so when you have your requirements, when you document your requirements, or when they've given you that requirements, so it's always good, to support your requirements with user story. So although most times you may not be able to actually write user stories for all the requirements. For example, when you have 50 requirements, you may not be able to write 50 requirements, 50 user stories. So, and sometimes it depends on the project anyway, it depends, but at least you still need to write, some certain user story anyway. So, and it's possible that one requirement, for example, if you say we want to be able to, we want the user to be able to generate, we want the system to allow user to generate a report. So we are saying user to generate a report. So now I can it's just like, this is more, the user story is more or less like a supporting information, to the requirements that you've written. The requirements, like for example, the requirements that I shared with you in the questions yesterday, so in the assessment. So now we have one requirement, let's say requirement 1. So user must be able to generate a report. So I'm now saying, so I'm using this user story to back up is sort of like a supporting information of my requirements that user must be able to generate reports. When you put this user story together, it actually helps the developer, to be able to know how they need to code that system, how they need to design the system. So, and the developer will be able to understand from the user perspective to say, this is what this user is trying to do. So what we say, so the format is usually as A, so who exactly is using it? So like, that's where you have the type of user. What exactly do you want to do? And why do you want to do it? Or what is the outcome? So I can say, as an administrator, I want to generate a report so that I can know the, let's say, the sales revenue for each month. That's from the perspective of the administrator. Then I can say at the same time, as a finance director, I want to generate a report so that I can know calculate the year-to-date financial figure. You know, year-to-date, I know YTD is actually in accounting. So year-to-date, so that I can calculate the year-to-date. So that means the developer knows who is going to use the system and what they are going to use it for. So when the developer is coding the system, the developer will ensure that functionality actually works for the finance director, and the finance director will be able to see whatever reports that the finance director is generating from the system. He can actually see the year-to-date, and the administrator can also see the sales figure. Likewise, the HR, the IT may even say, as an IT administrator, I want to generate reports so that I can audit the users' logins or something like that. So that means IT has its own requirement. It's still about reports, but they have different reports that they actually need from that single system. So that means they have to ensure that there's a report that actually meets the need of the administrator. There's a report that actually meets the need of the finance director. There's a report that actually meets the need of the IT administrator at the same time. So it's just like to support the requirements that you've written. So that is, so you can just say, as a let's say as a director, I want to view the dashboard so that I can see the outputs of each department. So the reason why they're doing it and what do they want to do and who exactly. So it's always this particular user story just helps the developer to understand the requirements better. So that's as who, then I want what. So it's still the same thing with this. So that, why are you doing this? So that's what we call user story. So very simple. You just need to ensure. So, but you can't really, just put this together by yourself. Definitely you can tease it out from the requirements that the stakeholders have given you. And even when you document this, you still have to, walk your stakeholder through this user story to say, they should validate it to ensure that you've actually documented the writing and the reason why they want to access the system or what they actually want to the functionality as well. So it's just, a way of saying, so most times this action is usually relates to the functionality that you're trying to use on that system. So most times this middle one, I want to do this. So it's actually connect to that functionality that the developer is actually delivering for you. So you just need to understand how you write your user story. And sometimes, like I said, one requirement, you could have 5 different user stories. So that's our user story in a nutshell. And so, like I mentioned yesterday, that one of the key things that a BA that you do at the same time is, when you document your requirements, it has been validated, you need to ensure your requirements are signed up. Although some people may say, okay, how do you, if you are working in an agile environment, how do you get, so because the way it works in waterfall, you have different methodologies. And so waterfall, you have to document all the requirements, it could take you 1 month, 3 weeks, depending on how big the project is. And then when you finish documenting, you send it to various stakeholders. That's where you have your version. So you have to ensure that your documents, you have version control on your documents. And so like 0.1, when you have a first draft, 0.1, when you make changes to it, 0.2, till you get the sign off. So when you send it to the different stakeholders, they will review it. Some people may say, oh, could you add this to it? We actually missed this the last time we met, or I just remember this, or my team just gave me this additional requirement. Can you include it in? So each time you add new things, so definitely, and you send it out, definitely the version will change. So let's assume, you've sent it to stakeholder, hey, that person has provided their own comments, and or stakeholder B also provided comments. So you integrate everything together and you recirculate it again. So let's say the second time, when you recirculate it again, so that could be your version, let's say 0.2. And maybe another person, it could be that it's only stakeholder B that actually made a comment to say, can you include this? So that means once you make that changes again, you incorporate the changes, that's 0.3. You send it out to everyone again, at least. But what you need to do when you are familiar with, all these, documents and version control, is you have sort of like a table, at the beginning of your document that will actually let the reader knows what you have changed. So they don't have to read the whole document because you have highlighted it. Maybe like 0.3 is just like you added to section 2.3. So the person just needs to go to that section 2.3 to go and read the changes. They don't need to read all the documents again. So it's that's the process of validation. So once that process is being completed and everybody is happy with the content of the documents, then you ask them that they should provide their sign-off. So if they're happy with it, could you please provide? So definitely it will be in an email. So the essence, the reason why we usually get that sign-off is just, for example, if you sign it off and maybe down the line they've started, definitely you send that to the supplier. If it's external supplier, the IT team, they'll start building that system. And maybe, maybe they must have spent maybe about £200,000. And down the line, somebody just remember that, oh, we have to change that system because it's not going to work because my colleague just said this is it. That means that is going to go through change requests, and it's going to, there's a sort of like a governance around that, because who is going to pay for the £200,000 that have been wasted, that people have worked the resources, the time that the BAs have spent, to document, the developers have been coding. So who is going to pay for that? So, but the person may say, oh, well, they didn't ask me. But you'll be able to justify yourself and cover your own track to say, this person actually signed off this requirement before I actually, forwarded it to the IT team. And this is a sign off. This is a sign off email, the approval that I actually obtained. But if you don't have that sign off, how do you want to justify your action? How do you want to cover yourself up? So that means it's the fault of the BA, that actually maybe documented the wrong thing without the stakeholder validating that information. So that's why that sign-off validation step is very key, because if not, it will be the fault of the BA. And even if the BA makes a mistake, maybe somebody mentioned something and you thought, oh, it was something else. At least if the person is trying, doing the validation, the stakeholder will be able to correct that, the person will be able to identify that mistake and say, oh, this is not what I said. Could you correct this? And, because one single thing could cost, thousands of pounds. So it may get the person sacked, because they may say, oh, that means that the person you don't know your job well. So always ensure that you have your approval, even if it's just an email. Even if they tell you, oh, I'm happy, even if you're having a meeting, maybe you set up a meeting to walk through to do the validation, to do it together. And if they say, oh, yes, I'm happy with everything, it's fine. At least when you still get back to your desk, still send an email after that meeting to say, as discussed at the meeting, could you kindly confirm that you're happy for me to put this through so that I can send it to the IT team or to the supplier? At least the person will confirm, once you have that email, that is your own evidence, to say you have an approval, from so person. So from your stakeholder, from this stakeholder, and those. So your approval is very necessary. So that is more like the waterfall, and also in Agile. So even in an Agile, you can't just. So despite the fact that you have your product owner there, you are working through the backlog during the sprint planning and everything, and you've documented your even before you put that, in the product backlog, because they would have assigned you a task to say this sprint one, okay, Abiola, you need to go and document requirements on the reporting requirements for the finance team. So if the finance team, they've given me their requirements, I've put the wireframe together, I've put the workup, everything together, and I've given it to the developer. But maybe the manager, one of the stakeholders from the finance may say, I'm sorry, that's not what we requested. You know, after developing everything and you are doing the demo, and they're not telling you that that was not what they requested, what will you do? So still the same thing. So what I do, so when I'm working in an agile environment in Spring, because I have time, you know, I would have planned my meeting time. I would have considered the time, factor in the time that I'm going to use to document. I will factor in the time that I'm going to use to validate that requirement, because I will still carry out the same process, but it's just that it's going to be like a short duration. I'm going to do all those requirements gathering, documentation, validation, you know, approval, maybe within that 2 weeks or 4 weeks, the 4 week sprint. So I just need to ensure that, you know, I squeeze in all those things, factor all those things in within that sprint. So I still ensure that I will document it. Even if I'm still going to put it on Jira, they may say, oh, you have to go and put your requirements on Jira. But at least for me, before I can even put it on Jira, because even if I gather the requirements, I'm not going to be writing on Jira direct like that. I still have to do, and my stakeholder will not be going on Jira, log into Jira to review my requirements. No. I still have to document it in maybe in an Excel or Word document, whatever template I use. Send it to my finance team to say, okay, this is what we've documented. This is the wireframe. Okay, can you please get back to me within by close of business, maybe 2 days time? I'll give them at least I'll give them like 48 hours, you know, to validate it and come back to me. And if they don't come back to me within that, because we are working with time at the same time, so I will ensure that I follow up to say, okay, I'm expecting it because I need to put it for next sprint. Then definitely that will hasten whoever the reviewer, you know, to review that document and to probably maybe make a comment on it to say I need to modify anything, or maybe I need to, you know, maybe the person is happy to sign it off. So once I get that sign off, so at least I will see document that to say, okay, I have the sign off. This is version 1.0. Send it to the developer, upload it maybe on Jira or Azure DevOps, whatever project management tool that we use, upload it there. And at least we have it that those requirements have been signed off before the developer can start working on it. So you can also, I know some people just say, oh, we don't need to get a approval. That is really wrong. You have to always get your requirement, you know, signed off, approved before you commit to the developer, because it doesn't really make sense if somebody you are saying because you are working in an agile environment, you don't get signed off on your requirements. So how about if you have made a mistake, you know, and you send that to the developer has spent 2 weeks coding, and maybe this QA engineer as well, they've spent time, you know, doing the testing. You know, imagine they are using contractors or they're even using permanent staff. You know, the resource, you know, if you actually cost, you know, the resources that have been working on that project, on that particular task for that sprint. So that could be maybe about £2,000 or 5,000, depending on the project, how many people working on it. Is it not during the show and tell? Maybe when you are not doing the demo, that's to your stakeholder to say, okay, this is what we've done. They're now saying, excuse me, that was not what we requested. Did you check the requirements? Oh, that's what Abiola gave to us. No, that was not what we requested. That means you have to rework. Imagine the embarrassment, imagine the reputation, you know. So always get either you are working on you're working in agile environment or waterfall, always ensure that you get your requirements, you know, signed off. So anyway, so you've signed up your requirements, your developer have done it, and even it could be that maybe probably why they're doing it. At the same time, it depends on the timing. You still have to document your acceptance criteria. And because this is what you document this with your user, because the user will be able to tell you that, okay, for the requirement to say, ability to be able to generate, you know, the user must be able to generate their report, you know, for the finance director. So it could be, so the way the finance director is going to test it could be different from the way the administrator is going to test it, or the IT user is going to test it. So there you will put this acceptance criteria together. So the acceptance criteria is just more or less like a checklist to say what the developer have developed, they want to ensure that it meets their criteria, it meets what they have requested, for the project team to deliver. So that means, definitely this, so you could, if it depends on the timing. So it's something that you could document at the same time while documenting your requirements. It's something that you could document at the same time, depending on the time. But definitely the developer does not really need it and like immediate like that, depending. So you could easily submit that, the acceptance criteria, but is the requirements is the main thing, then this acceptance criteria can follow. But if you're able to document everything before passing everything to the developer, it's fine. So your acceptance criteria, it also helps the developer to actually know, how the user is going to test it. So they would have made sure that once they are coding, they are put, they are factoring, they put, they factor in, the way the user is going to test it, they factored all those things in. They would do their own testing before even sending it to the deal, passing it to the QA team to test. They will be able to test that, okay, if they log in as a finance director, are they able to calculate, generate a report that will, that will calculate year to date? So they will be able to test on their own because it's like they have the information, beforehand, and because they know that definitely this is what the user is going to use to test the system, whether it works, whether it fits, it's fit for purpose and is actually what they've requested. So it's more or less like, we call it, something that they can, actually, they've seen what they're going to test anyway, whether they know that whether it's pass or fail. And this is actually one of the things that they're going to use to know whether that particular requirement or what they have developed functionality actually pass the test or fail. So that is acceptance criteria. So you are responsible to document as a BA, to document the acceptance criteria. So, but you document it in conjunction with your stakeholder, because you can't really know how they're going to test it if they don't tell you. Although you may have an idea of what they're going to test, although you may put some things together, but at the same time, you still run through past them to say, this is what I've documented. Do we need to add anything? What test are you going to test for this requirement? 1 requirement, 2 requirement, 3. So each of those requirements needs to have, acceptance criteria, let's say functionality, and each requirement could have more than 1 acceptance criteria as well. So just like the user story, so you may have like 3 ways of testing this. So yeah, so let's stop it there. So when should you document it? So like I said, you have to document it before, before they even finish the system. They finish developing the system if possible, because at least the software tester and also the developer will know what you're going to test ahead of time. And so it's just for them to prepare. And like I say, each acceptance criteria, you must be able to test that. So because you are responsible for this, and when you are doing the acceptance criteria, you have to manage your, okay, yeah, I think this is the acceptance criteria, but I may not be able to open it. So it's just like a sample. But I'm sure if you watch the past videos, I think I have it, I have the sample on it. And so when you do that, when they have, while they are doing the developing the system, so you have to ensure you owns this. Although let's say the QA team may inform you that, okay, we want to do the UAT. So when they call UAT, is user acceptance testing. They want to do the UAT for the system. Could you liaise with your stakeholder to know when you will be available to test? So it's more or less like you are representing your stakeholder, your customer as well, which are your stakeholder. So you are the one that will be, trying to liaise with the IT team to ensure that, okay, we can do it 2 days over this period. We can do it next week. We are available Thursday 2 to 4, depending on the time. So you own that in a way. And so sometimes, like I say, you can it's not that you are responsible to document this, or the test cases is actually QA, but it's something that you can review depending on the organization, but not every time you have to review that. And also, so is you are the one that will actually like conduct that UAT session, is more or less like facilitating it. So, but because you can easily say, okay, requirements one, you've not tested it. You know, sometimes some people, they may just want to, you know, just pass it through sometimes. That's if they're not really professional, but they should not be doing that. So it's just for you to ensure that everything that you've requested are actually delivered. Everything requested is delivered, you know, during the UAT, and you've tested it, and your stakeholders are happy, you know, with the product. So is your responsibility at the same time. So just like the product owner, you know, when they, you know, in Agile as well. So they are, you know, responsible for that, you know, to ensure that everything is actually working accordingly or as expected. And so once you conduct that UAT, so then you can just tell them to maybe send you an email to say they're happy with that product or with that system, and that close that project. So depending on what you have in project plan, but most times you just, so at least your job as a BA, in a way, you finish your tasks. So once you do that UAT, and because once you've delivered the product or the service, what else do you have to do? So although they may assign you to another project, or do you tell you to help with maybe with the user guide or training guide or support some people. So, but at least more or less like those are the key steps that you just need to carry out. And yeah, so this is just, although it's not, it's just something that you just need to be aware of, as in, you know, the software, the life cycle of the software development. So like when you gather your requirements, then they do the, so this is where we come in, requirement elicitation. This is because we have to do the first requirements, and it's your requirement that they will actually use to do the design before they can start development. Then the QA actually do the testing and then deploy it. And that's why I always say, as a BA, your job is very critical, and it's more or less like you are the lifeline, you know, for that project. Because if a BA, if you document a wrong thing, you know, definitely nobody's going to know except you and the stakeholder. So because the developer will not be attending the requirements gathering session with you. So they will not know whether they said the system should generate 2,000 reports every month. They will not know. So it's whatever you document, you know, for the developer, that's what the developer is going to produce, you know, that is going to develop for you. So they will not be participating in the requirements elicitations, you know, session. So if you document, instead of the stakeholder have mentioned that, okay, you should document, or maybe the system should be able to generate 2,000 reports every month, and you made a mistake, maybe by omission or one way or the other, you made that mistake and you documented 200 instead of, you missed out the zero, or saying 200 instead of 2,000, and the developer have developed something based on 200, you know, so that means you, wherever, so based on 200, yeah, the people doing the designing, they've designed based on 200, developers also have developed based on 200, the tester have also tested based on 200 in the requirement document, because they will be looking through your requirement documents as well. And, you know, they deployed based on 200. Imagine during the UAT, then the stakeholder is now saying, no, we actually mentioned 2,000. So that means the BA has caused, you know, a problem. So so it's more or less like you determine the success, in a way, in one aspect, you determine the success of that project, because it's like garbage in, garbage out. So if you give them garbage from the beginning, definitely these people at the bottom here, they will deliver garbage out. So they will deliver you, they will have to put a garbage thing for you as well. So, but if you do the right, if you document your requirements properly, definitely everything will work fine according to as expected. So BA is a very critical role. So you are more or less like the lifeline of that project. So you will determine whether that project is going to be successful or not. at least in a way, I'm talking from the requirements aspects, not in like maybe timeline and all the stuff. So, but in a way, when it comes to the requirements, you are key person that will actually determine whether that project is going to be successful or not. Because once you get it wrong from the requirements, that is it. So you may have to do rework, resources, time, duration, everything wasted. So you just have to be careful about that. And so definitely Scrum. So people, if you attend the Scrum master session, so definitely they would tell you all this. So it's just for you as a BA, you need to familiarize yourself with this as well. And because these are the things that you come across, these are the events, or they call it ceremonies. So because if as a BA, if you're working in Nigeria environments, definitely you'll be attending the sprint planning. That's when you will know what you are going to document, the requirements that you're going to gather for the next sprint, or for the current sprint, or for the next sprint. At least you will be involved. So this sprint planning is like, when you are before you actually start the actual sprints. So to be able to know what you're going to do for that next sprint. So your daily stand up is usually 15 minutes. That's where you tell them what you are doing, what you've done, if there's any impediments, what you did yesterday, and any blocker like the impediments, and what you will be doing that day. So it's a daily standard. And some places, they don't do it every day. So they may say 3 times a week. Just depends. And it could be via Teams, it could be face-to-face if you're in a face-to-face environment. So it could be face-to-face, and it could be, via online as well. So, but it's just daily stand-up, they call it. So you just need to ensure that you just know all those events. And the review is what, that's when they have done you've completed your sprints, and they are doing, to review what you have done as well. Then you have the retrospective, you do your lesson learned and all this stuff. So, but definitely it's something that you can Google, and even during the Scrum Master, they will give you the details of like the detailed information about it, but it's just be aware, just get familiar with, the terminology with the events. But these are the 4 key ones that I know that I do participate when I'm working in Nigerian environments. And so you have different collaboration too. I know these are just the common ones that I know a lot of people, organization use. You have Confluence, Jira, and Azure DevOps. So you manage the requirements, the delivery, you'll be able to see the track. And those people that will be doing the internship as well, you'll be using, I think, Azure DevOps or so, but depending, they will let you know. So, when you write as a BA, when they assign to the team, definitely your requirements, anyway, it will be uploaded. Even when you get assigned, you still be uploaded in Azure DevOps. And then they may even ask you to write the user stories in there as well. You may just have to copy from it and paste in Azure DevOps. You can copy from your documents and just keep pasting there. Then you can move the tickets, like maybe done, or is in development, or is in design, or is in increment. But you can, at least I'm sure they will talk you through all those things. So it's just a collaboration tool that they use to manage projects. And so, so you have these post-project tasks that you do. Not all the time that they do this. Not all projects, and not all organizations, but sometimes they may say, okay, we actually want to, because when they are doing the business case, they would have probably put information like the project manager, so those people that will be doing the project management stuff. So when you are preparing the business case, I'm sure there's a section, they usually have information around the benefits, that project will actually deliver to the organization. And so probably maybe before the inception of that project, before they get approval to go ahead with the project, so maybe they've already mentioned that the project will save them maybe £5,000 every day, every month. So maybe they may actually quantify that to say, oh, it's going to save us about 250 hours every month. And but how would they be able to justify that they've actually achieved that benefit? So when you are doing your benefit realization, so there's usually a template for that. And most times usually Excel, but it depends. It's not like one size fits all. So depending on what you are, the benefits that you actually want to, to calculate, or you want to, that you've actually highlighted in the business case, you use that information to, to calculate this. And so sometimes, so it could be that, and it's not something they can just do immediately. If you deliver a project, let's say you deliver a project in, let's say July, end of July. So you can't say, you cannot, calculate your benefits. You can't do these tasks like a month. A month is too early for you to say, oh, we've calculated this benefits realization figure, something like that. You can't do that, it's too early, because what you may produce, if you have to do it the second month, it could be different figure. So what most of organizations, what they do is that before they actually carry out this particular task, they could leave about 3 months or 6 months. They will now say, okay, let's actually work on the benefit realization. Have we realized our benefits that we actually, certain in the business case? So that means you need to get data, from, depending on what you want to calculate. So let's say we want to calculate the manpower of 5 or maybe 250 that they've already, forecasted in the business case. Then you have to, contact the relevant people that you need to reach out to ask them, okay, you said before this new system was actually delivered to you, how many hours do you spend on this to, to produce your weekly reports? Oh, so the person may say, oh, I do spend every week, I do spend roughly about 5 hours. So yeah, so the person, so you meet another person, whoever that has been, using that system. So you gather the data, what they've been doing before, or how long do they spend, doing that particular task. It could be different times. So you just have to, it's a lot of data. So you have to, calculate. Maybe for registering a staff, they do it on the system. Maybe they said 4 hours. Maybe HR team said they do 6 hours, that there are another process they do. You have to calculate based on everything you want to cover anyway. So once you do that, so that's what so you now know the number of hours that each person spend, maybe every week. So you calculate that based on because we want to do the months. So you multiply it by maybe 4.2 or 4.5, depending on how many days you calculate. So then you need to know how many or how much is their, like their maybe value, or like their wages per hour. Although you get all that information, from let's say from the finance, they will give you that information to be able to know the costing, to do the costing. Then now you now say, okay, you'll be spending, so overall, let's say all the people that have been using, doing all those tasks or processes, so they've been spending about 250 or let's say 700 hours before every month, everybody. But now they are using the system. So you will not tabulate it against how long do you spend when you are not using the system to do the task, to generate your reports. This person may now say, it just takes me 30 minutes every week. Another person may say, okay, this. So you calculate that as well. So that could even amount to probably maybe 400 hours. So that means you could compare to say 700 hours before the system, before you actually put a system in place. Then they're spending 400 now, after putting the system in place. So that means you've saved 3 hours with the introduction every month, with the introduction of the new system. So if you now want to calculate the cost, then you now, do the calculation based on their wages per hour to get the figure. So that is how you do your benefits realization. But not all projects actually do this post-project task. So sometimes it could just end on the user or UAT, and sometimes they may say, okay, come and work on this benefits realization piece of work. So yeah, and I think, yeah, that's the end. Any question before we move to Visio? Okay, let me see. Okay, chat. So let me go through the charts. I hope I'll be able to see this. Okay. Is the business process same as wireframe? So yes, so the business process is not the same as wireframe. So wireframe is like a mock-up, you know, like the business process is like a sequence, which I'm going to show you. But the wireframe is like a sketch, you know, if you're trying to develop a website. And so the layout of that website, you know, definitely that is how you want it to be arranged. Like you have maybe login on the top right hand side, you want to have register on the left hand side, at the bottom in the middle you want to have contact, you want a logo in between, you know, that is like a wireframe. And also wireframe is not just only on is not related to just only to websites. So it could be to your mobile phone, it could be to apps, you know, all these applications, software, you know, the layout, like I said, layout of your phone is actually, you know, they do use wireframe for that, to develop that, you know, to say this is the layout. When you press home, this is what it should display. And also reporting as well. You know, when you are developing a reporting, you also provide sort of like a wireframe for it as well, because it will help the developer to be able to know where to put the, you know, pound sign, where to put the year-to-date column, where to put the, you know, arrangement of that, you know, report, how you want, or, you know, that's just an example of an invoice, how you want to create an invoice. Maybe the stakeholder may say they want the date and the address or the logo to be at the bottom, not as usual as the maybe the right top left corner, you understand? So that is the difference. So wireframe is more or less like a sketch or a layout of how you want things to appear. And so the business process is like, you know, like a sequence of tasks, what you are doing after one another, you know. But I will show you the example of a business process. And so validation, so is like, you know, trying to confirm. So let me just use that word, to confirm what has been documented. So it's different from the acceptance criteria. So the acceptance criteria is to test the system. So that will involve the developer, the tester, the stakeholder to test whether what the developer have developed is actually what we've requested. And also, well, can a requirement be reviewed or updated after it has been? Yes, if it's something that's probably maybe if there's a change, because you have to review it before it gets, because it's when they review it that they will approve it anyway. But if after acceptance they now want to add something to it, definitely that's going to go through a change. That's when you see 1.1 or 1.2 or 1.3 and they get that sign off again. So it's like adding things to it. So yeah, you can still add things to it, but it's just that it needs to go through a change request. So is it compulsory for Scrum Master to attend a daily stand-up meeting? Yes, because you will be the one. So it's the Scrum Master that usually facilitates the daily stand-up. Anyway, they own that meeting to facilitate it. So yeah, I would say yes. I'll say yes. So can you throw more light on acceptance when it's done? I think we've mentioned that. So the acceptance criteria, you can document that while you are documenting your requirements, and before you even send it to the developer. And even once you send the requirements to the developer, you can still document your acceptance criteria after that. But before they actually finish all the implementation, all the designing development, so that at least it will help the developer to actually know what you are going to test, because you will be using the acceptance criteria to say, this is what we are going to test. So everything you are developing, it has to ensure that it fits this criteria. So that's the essence. So on validation, what if the stakeholder just wants to verbally approve or refuse to approve to an email? Definitely, they will not. They will not. They know, because you just need to convince them. Although they may say, oh, yes, I'm happy with it, fine. Then you say, okay, I will send an email. Could you just confirm that in an email to me? Definitely nobody will want to, do that. So you, even if you say you just need to, it just is a requirement, it's part of the requirements or the governance, for the process that we carry out, we have to have a sign at the app or the email confirmation that you are happy with it. Definitely the person will be happy to just drop a line. It could just be a line, I'm happy with the document. That's okay. Or I can confirm I'm happy with it. That's okay. That's your approval. It's fine. So, but you should have, because in the past I've only used, email, to get my sign off and approve, because I can't really, and we don't have any form that will say, come and sign this. No, so it's just only by email that I do that anyway. So we'll be given a project during the internship, you'll be given a project. Yes, you'll be given a project. You'll be assigned to different project team. So, and you'll be working, with other people, maybe like Scrum Master or project manager or developer and QA. So you have, all those people as your team member, hopefully. So how do you do the change request? So that is the different governance stuff. So if you have a project manager, and if there's a need for that, you need to inform. If the stakeholder say, oh, we need to include an additional requirement, we just realized that needs to go through your project manager. You need to inform your project manager. The project manager usually there's a process for that. So they will guide you through what you need to do. Maybe the form that you need to fill, information you need to provide for them. It could be that is a project manager that will actually do all those things. They would just or maybe ask you or request some information from you to complete that change request form or whatever system they are using for the change request. So usually the project manager manages that change request process, but definitely you provide the details of the changes that be requested. So Scrum Guide 2020 is optional for Scrum Master and Product Owner to connect. Well, it all depends. I'm not a Scrum Master, but in the past, like all the projects, like the Agile projects that I've worked on, so we always have a Scrum Master attending. Although if the Scrum Master is not available, definitely the daily stand-up will still go ahead anyway. So you can still have the daily stand-up among yourself, among the sprint team. So it's not that the Scrum Master needs to be there if they are occupied with something, but why will you have a Scrum Master in an organization? You have a Scrum Master then, except maybe the person has maybe clash, with another meeting, or maybe they are busy with other things and they can attend that daily stand-up. But aside that, that's just my opinion. Yeah, so it could be that they don't need to attend, but from experience, what I've been involved so far, so they always attend. So except if they are not available or on leave. Yeah. So yeah, is the same. So modeling, mapping is still similar. It's still the same. Yeah. So, okay, so let me just go through, I think, that's all. So I'll just run through the Visio. I hope you can see my screen, yeah. So this is my Visio, this is the Visio. And so you just, as a BA, you need to ensure that you know how to use this. And and one thing I do tell people is that you can actually at least know the basic things, within 1 hour, you can. Although not like all the core functionalities like that, but at least the basic things that you need to know, is something that you can learn in 1 hour or less than 1 hour. That's just the way I say it. So depending on what you want to do, so you have, different templates here. So this is a wireframe. If you see this wireframe, so this is actually for a website. So you can see it's sort of like a layer to say maybe they will have a video here, and they will have maybe sort of like they call it something I've forgotten now. So container, yes, they have containers there, maybe text, Lauren. So anyway, so you have different templates within this. So you could see here, you say more templates, so you can access more templates. But for the one that we usually use most times, depending on what you are mapping anyway, so you select this cross-functional flowcharts. And so you have a template here. So you could, because I know what I'm going to do anyway, so I will choose a blank one. So sometimes you may have if you want to map your process in a vertical order, and if it's horizontal, so you could select that. But definitely I'm going to select a blank one, and I will say create. So it's loading up. Yeah, so you can see it has given me like like few boxes. Let me just try to increase that because I can really see that properly. Okay, yeah. So this is what we call swim lanes. You can see, so we call everything like pool, like your swimming pool, like all these Olympic swimming competition. They will have the pool, then you have different lanes to say Britain, USA, Canada, Finland, Norway. So you have different lanes. So that's where it comes from to say pool, everything is pool, and you have different swim lane. So this is what we call swim lane. This is one swim lane. This is second swim lane. And what we can do, and you can name them. So just here. So here we actually name it as, so you use swim lane to actually model a process or to map a process that you want to see who is at the hands of, who is doing what and what are they doing. So it could be you have a process that involves 3 different teams or 3 different people or 3 different organizations or 3 different countries, depending on the information. Let's say 3 different teams within one organization. So let's say we want to look at customer, we want to look at finance, and we want to look at let's say logistic. Yeah, so all you just need to do is to click on it. And so once you click on it, you can override the function. I can just say customer, type on it. So then I want to say my finance. Finance team. And so now, because I know that we are going to need more than, so maybe it's about 4 parties that actually involved in this process. All you just need to do is to drag this and just make it closer and just drop it. So it's just drag and drop. Although sometimes if you don't move it closer, it will create another pool for you. So if you don't move it closer, it will just do, so you can see now, because it wasn't really closer to the other line. So I will just undo that. So you just need to know that, ensure that when you are dragging it, so you move it closer to that line, then you drop. So now you have 4 swim lanes. Yeah, 4 swim lanes. Then you just need to label it to name these lanes. So let's say we want to say, let's say logistic team, and we want to put Okay. And we want to include, let's say, third party. Let's say third party. Yeah. So, yeah. So, and also, so we've labeled all the parties that are involved in this process. And so what is the title of the process? What process? So you need to label your process. So what process are you modeling? So we want to, let's say, what's it called? So payments, let's say payments for payments for products. Let's just, so what you need to ensure is that, you know, when you are writing your title, always ensure that it starts with a verb. And also, and just for a best practice, nobody is saying that you must, but for best practice, always ensure that when you map your process, you actually put the dates. Although some people put author as well to know that we have actually, you know, mapped that process. So you can, you know, you can add the information to say author. So you can say Abiol. And you can probably say version. So because the reason why, just for best practice, is for you to know, because, you know, if you are saving this and you have then dates, so your date, although everything could be in one line anyway. So today is 05/07/2022. So although you could have everything in one line anyway, you could have everything in one line. It could be on the same line with this. It could be, you could have it like this. So depending on how you want to do it. But the reason why we put, you know, I, you know, encourage people to always have this information is that when you are referring back to it, then you'll be able to know which process you've actually, you know, worked on. I mean, which one is this? Which one does, you know, because you may have different processes saved that you use payments for products, but how will you know, let's say the version 0.1, the one that you've done in the past, how will you know that? So let me just undo that anyway. I think where's myself? Is it them? Anyway, so I think I don't want that to waste my time. So anyway, so we know we have that information here. So you just need to ensure you have your author. If possible, you don't need to, but ensure you put the version control there, maybe version 0.1. If you make changes to it, version 0.2, and the date, so that at least you'll be able to know that, okay, this is, and even if you leave the organization, and if people are referring to this process, they can say, oh, this process was mapped 2020 or 2022. So probably maybe they will just realize that the process has changed, you know, since 2021, and we don't have any documentation. So they could easily, you know, refer back to the old one and just amend it, you know, or they could just say, when did we update this last? At least having that date there will actually help, you know, people viewing it. So that's just the essence. And so that is what you use, you know, and you can have it horizontal, like we said, mentioned as well. So you have different design. If you want to change this blue is the default, but if you want to change that, you can just select all this. That's why I said in 1 hour you could learn this, you know, in 1 hour. So these are just for the designing anyway. So let's leave that. Let me just use this one. So let's just choose that one. And so, and you have various things as well. If you want to include maybe page, you want to include websites like hyperlink, you can use that. And so you have different, but the basic things that you need to actually no. So this is just for you to do the layout. So that's our swim lane. Now you need basic flow diagram. So this is what basic flow chart shapes, because without the shapes, this is useless. It doesn't really make sense. So now we need to understand. So that's the information that they're going to give you. Actually, that's what you're going to, to actually plot it. You can't be doing this, mapping this while the stakeholder is there, because it will waste time. So all you can just, when you meet with the stakeholder, all you just need to ask the stakeholder to say, could you talk me through the process of paying or making payments for a product? Then they will tell you, oh, okay, the customer needs to access the website. Okay, what do they do then? Okay, once they access the website, they have to register. Okay, so you will be noting it down. So that's why sometimes you can ask for their permission to record the session. So if you are using Teams or something like Teams, you have that functionality, to record, but you just need to seek their permission anyway. So you can record, all this conversation. Then you can now go back to your notes, or play back that the recording. Then you can be using that information they've given you to plot, to do your process. So for every process is always needs to have a start and end. So that's where you have this is your start. All you just need to do is drag and drop. So your process needs to have start and it needs to have an end. End could be that this process actually ends within so the finance team, it could be it ends with a third party. And any task that they do within a process, so you use this shape for it, this shape. And even if you, depending on the setting, because I know I've maybe done something to this setting. So what I use this as a connector to connect, or you just bring it here and just drop it, and that's it. And what you need to know, and also what you need to know is that, so you could see the arrow, it has arrow head. So I'm saying, I'm starting my process from the customer. So what happened? So you could see it's giving, if you hover on it, it will give you option. So what is the next step or next step? If it's a task, if it's a decision. So, but I know we can't go through everything today, to be honest. So, so that's why you need to watch that video. So, you could connect to other shapes, and even if it's there as well, you could connect as well. So you could bring the shape down. Maybe the next one is just, is what's it called? Is actually coming to this side, maybe to finance. So you could just do to this side. And even if you can have the process going this way as well. So you just need to be able to, map that depending on how the process flows. So just to quickly walk you through this. So this is, we actually use for activity, when you are doing something. So let's say we say the customer needs to register. So here you just double click and type on it. So I would say register, person, or let's say personal information. So, and one thing is that anytime you are using this shape, always ensure that it starts with a verb. Register, close, submit the form, print the form, approve. Always it needs, whatever you're going to write in this particular rectangle shape needs to start with a verb. So because it's an activity, is what they are doing, is like a action word, is action that are being carried out. That's what you use this shape for. This is like a decision to say, does it pass, or happy with the content, like asking a question. When you are trying to determine something and it's sort of like a question, that's when you use this shape. So this is like a process, like a sub-process that could be within a process. But I know that could be, I won't go into detail because that could be confusing. And when it involves something like a document, So you use this shape. When you are related to something about data, you use this shape. Database, anything that has to do with sort of like a system, maybe this information is feeding into another system, or you need to log in into a different system. Let's say, for example, a SAP system, or which other system I know is common? Let's say Oracle system. Yeah, so it's this. So so you use this to actually represent it, to say probably this information feeds into this, or finance team log into this, Oracle system. So you just need to label it. I know some people, they write on it to say log into this. Is actually wrong. You don't write sort of like logging into it. All you need to do is just to name the system, to say Oracle, because it's not a tax, it's a system. So you need to, because you could have maybe about 5 different systems involved in this process. So you just need to have different, you have to have each system at wherever you have. Maybe this system actually will feed into another system, then you can do the connection, add another system, that this Oracle system, the information feeds into Horizon system, like that. Maybe that information, somebody will not print it out. But try and avoid, to say log into or assign a patient in Oracle system. No, it's wrong. So this must not have sort of like a tax or actual word written on it. It should just be a name of a system. So, but I know some people do that, but that's actually wrong. So you just have different, so let me just end it there. So but if you watch the past video, I think you will be able to see, how you map everything, how you have different tabs. If you need to have, so you could say this one is for payments. You could say this one is for another one. You could add another one, maybe, which is for, you could even duplicate this as well. So you have to duplicate it. You can duplicate this particular one. Maybe you want to have map similar process. Instead of you putting everything together, you can just duplicate it. So that will give you another one. So then you can just modify it. So you can add various, you can say this is, all I just need to do is to right click and rename. So I can just say payments process. So I can rename this to say, let's say recruitment, definitely you can do that as well. And you can include sort of like a link to a website to do various things. And also why I encourage people to do, like when you say payment process, so because like we talked yesterday, you could have a current process or to be process. Ensure that, because assuming that you map this process and I pick it up, how will I know whether it's for the to be process or is the assist process? So all you just do, what I do, just my own, and why I advise people to do. So just say as is process. So whoever is, reading through this process will know this is actually assist process. And I can name this one, maybe my to be process, if it's, so depending on what it is, if I'm just mapping to be processed, so you just just label it accordingly. So at least whoever is reading on it will be able to know that this is actually to be processed. This actually has this process. Imagine if it's the same payment product. How will you know whether this one is to be or assist? So it's just for best practice. It's always good. It helps the reader. And yeah, I think I will stop there because we will not be able to go, because this is like a session on its own. So like a 2-hour session, if I have to teach you everything you need to know on that. And also, I think another thing I can show you is, yeah. So let me say design. So if you map it, sometimes when you map this process, it could have like the shapes going on and on. So, but if you want to fit that into a page, all you just need to do, you come to design and you select size. when you select, so you can say it should fit into diagram. So you have you can select the paper that you actually want to use to print. So you can select that, you can just say fit into diagram. So that means this will actually fit into the paper that you selected. And also I know there, if you want to make it maybe, but most time we don't usually use portrait because you will not be able to print it. It won't be nice when you use, so most times it's usually landscape, but it's just this. Sometimes the diagram may be big that you don't need to use A4, you need to select like A3, or so you just need to, because sometimes if you are having sort of like a walkthrough face to face with the stakeholder and you don't want to use laptop and you want to print it out, you need to ensure that you select the right paper here, and then you'll be able to see whether it's going to fit in A4 or maybe it's going to be A3. So at least that will help you. And yeah, I think I'll stop there. So once you have this, you can, I mean, the application, you can play with it by yourself. And the more you use it, you know, the better you get on in it. So you'll be able to, so like if you need more shapes, you can just come here and, you know, just select it as needed, you know. So this, a lot of other professions, they use Visio as well, you know, people that do networking diagram, you know, like architecture people as well. So they, you know, the architects, they use this as well. You know, some project planning, wherever professionals as well, they use. So you have different templates that you can use, you know, maybe for designing offices, they use this as well. They have different, so you have a lot. Engineering team, you know, like they have for mechanical. So, but we as a business, BA, business analyst, most time we just use these business processes. And you have your HAROS, you have your brainstorming as well, is another thing that we use. And yeah, so I think that should be here. So, and sometimes, but I will not want to confuse it. So like sometimes you could import favorites. It's not like a standard. So like now, if I want to say I have Excel, that maybe this Oracle generates Excel document, I will just use this as an icon and I will, you know, put an arrow. Let me just do that. And I'll put an arrow here to say this Oracle actually, you know, generates, produce Excel. Then I can even say from this Excel, we produce, this team actually use that information from the Excel to produce a PowerPoint, a deck as well, maybe for the board, for the board to present a monthly, to make a report. So, you know, you have different, so you can import some, you know, different icons that you can use at least, I mean, something similar like this, not just any icon anyway. So, you know, just so you can, yeah. So I think if you listen to the past video, that will really help you. That will really go a long way. And also, yeah, I know I said I will show you the BPMN. So the BPMN and the basic flow chart, they have different symbols. So let's just say BPMN. That should bring it out here. BPMN. So you can search for shapes. So BPMN. So this is a BPMN. So you could see that the shapes are a bit different. Is a bit different from, you know, the stats. For example, if you want to look for stats, their stats is different. So you could see this is stats events. So it's different from this. So, but it's still means the same start of that process. So, but it's just that BPMN. So in your organization, they may be using BPMN basic shapes. So they may not be using something, this particular one, like, you know, the basic one. So they may say we use BPMN notation. So that means you have to use all these shapes here to represent similar thing here. So although like the tax, so you see the tax is like a task curve, but this one is like a proper rectangle. So, but it's still the same thing. We are still saying is like an activity, but you could see it's different. So, but you just need to know what they are using in your organization, and that will really help you. And yeah, I think I'll stop there. Then you can save your file depending on where you want to save it to. So you still have your same file, save as, and all this stuff. Yeah. And if you want to convert it to PDF. And another thing is that when you are sharing this with your, because when you map the process, you need to share with your stakeholder to review it, whether what you have, because they will not be there when you are mapping it. They will just give you the verbal information. Then you have to go away to go and map it. So that's why you need that, validation session as well to be able to. You can have a meeting. You can set up a meeting, for them to actually to have a face-to-face validation, or you can send to them. And basically, what you just need to do is to, probably if you have to send it to them. It's not all stakeholders that usually have Visio. So you just need to ensure that you convert it to PDF. So you have, when you are clicking save as, you have an option to say save as PDF. So then anyone will be able to open PDF and view it. Yeah, so I think I will stop there. So any questions? Do you right click on the shape to give option of selecting other shapes? Yeah, so you can either right click, no, you hover on it. So if I go back to, so if you hover on it, so I didn't even click on it. I just put my cursor on it. So then it will give me that option. Oh, but to be honest, sometimes it's waste time. For me, it's waste time. It's waste my time. It's easy for me, for me, it's easier. I will just do drag. I will just come here, drag what I need, and just do when it will save me waiting for the something to hover and appear. I would have dragged like 2 shapes. So to be honest, I just use drag and drop. I don't even waste my time to hover on it for it to display and select. So it just depends on your choice anyway. So can you do a voice recording from stakeholders while collecting the requirements as this? Oh yes, you can have everything, and sometimes they may even be too fast for you to, to capture, to start typing down. So that's why you just need to seek their permission. Yeah, people do allow that. They will say, oh yeah, that's fine. All you just need to ensure that is that you make them aware that if they don't mind that you want to record this session, because you have to use the information to document the requirements later, and they'll be fine, because it's still about the job. So they should be fine with it as long as they know they're saying the right thing. So most times the stakeholders that they don't object, most times they don't object. So you can explore that. And if you know that you can type fast, you can be typing as well. But sometimes, having that recording usually goes a long way. So because sometimes you may miss something while typing, and you may want to send them an email to say, could you confirm that you said this, or is that what you meant? But having the recording, you can listen to it, play it all over again to ensure that you've captured everything. Okay, yeah. So, yeah. So any other question before we call it, before we end the call? I guess no other question. Thank you so much for your time. Yeah. So